welcome. This is Outlook Business. I'm Shonakshi Chakravarty, and this is that time of the year, the first week of February, when the budget is laid and a foundation and outline is built to state the state of the economy, of the Indian economy. And I am joined in this very, very interesting conversation with Mr. P Chidambaram, the former Finance Minister, and of course, in addition to all the other offices that he has held, and senior Congress leader. He will help us analyze, dig deep into his criticism of the budget and why he criticizes the budget this year as well. Sir, thank you very much for giving us your time in this conversation. We have heard you and your viewpoint, but to help us understand, I just want to begin by asking you, do you believe that this budget was beautifully balanced as stated by the current Finance Minister?
It's balanced between the rich and the government. Where are the poor in this budget? See, the poor are groaning under inflation, unemployment, and even that is contagious. It's spreading to the middle class because many middle class employees are being laid off. You saw company after company laying off thousands of people. Now, in such a situation, what should the government do? What should the budget do? It should give relief to people. After all, you're in government not to collect taxes and spend on whatever strikes your fancy. You're in government to make life better, life a little more tolerable, life a little more pleasant. If you don't address those issues that concern the vast majority of the people, and I'm saying vast as much as, say, 95% of the people, then this budget is completely irrelevant and meaningless to the vast majority of India. That is my criticism.
In your wisdom, sir, you have mentioned, in fact, you went on to even count the number of times the Finance Minister uttered the word poor, which is 2 times, you said. But do you believe that this budget is really anti-farmer, anti-poor? Do you believe so?
See, whether it's anti-farmer or anti-poor is a different matter. I want a budget which is pro-poor, pro-farmer. Now tell me, what in this budget is pro-poor? Now, what do the poor want? Poor want jobs, rising income, and low inflation. What has the poor got for that? Have they cut any prices, say petrol, diesel, fertilizer, food? No prices have been cut. On the contrary, on the subsidy for fertilizer and food, they have cut 1,40,000 crore from this year to next year, which means prices of food and prices of fertilizer will increase. Have they done anything to create jobs? The Maganrega, which is the only safety net, has been slashed by almost 28,000 crore. Next year, the outlay is only 60,000 crore. And as it is in this year, only 42 days of work on an average has been given to the Maganrega worker. That's admitted in the economic survey. So you don't cut taxes, you don't cut prices, you take away whatever little safety net is there, you do something which will increase the prices of food and fertilizer. So what have you done? Look at the other side. Learning loss. The ASA report says 8th standard child can't read a 2nd standard textbook. What have you done to address that?
Well, they've increased the budget. The maximum allocation has been given to the education.
But what are you doing about ensuring that the money spent brings them back to pre-pandemic levels of learning? There's not even a whisper about these things. See, as far as this government is concerned, the ASA report does not exist. The National Family Health Survey does not exist. The Oxfam report does not exist. I mean, if you turn a blind eye or you close your eyes to these fundamental issues which are thrown up by these very scholarly reports, then how will you address them? You will go on the same path which will make more billionaires in this country, which will make the 1% aggrandize more wealth in this country and leave the poor high and dry.
Which brings me to the next question, sir. You have continuously pointed out via your tweets and in your interviews and in your writing, of course, the poor execution of the government. Now, while the government may have pumped in a lot of money and goes on to state, give us big numbers, double digit, triple digits, and gives us numbers that this is the amount of money they've pumped in, but you say that this money is actually not being used on the ground. So do you believe that this government lacks drive to ensure that there's something on the ground, or like we say, bottom-up approach? Do you believe?
I'm not pointing a finger only at this government.
Right.
I'm pointing a finger at all governments, including ours. You see, government's capacity to execute is much more limited than the private sector's capacity to execute. See, if government builds, say, a power plant, it will take at least 1.5 times or twice the amount of time that the private sector takes to build. If the government lays a road, it will take longer. But that's because of the nature of government. And when you suddenly say, I will increase the capital expenditure by a whopping 33%, I want to point out the current year you gave 7.5 lakh crore. Why have you not been able to achieve that? You're falling short by 28,000 crore. Now next year you say, I will spend 10 lakh crore. Roughly half of it is going to railway and roads. And roughly half of that half is going to roads. So let's say 5 lakh crore to all other departments, ministries, 2.5 lakh crore to railway, 2.5 lakh crore to the road sector. Are you confident that the railway and the road sector will be able to spend 2.5 lakh crore in a matter of 12 months? Especially the tender can be floated only after April 1. It can't be floated before that. Once you float the tender and invite bids and select them, see, even preparing the tender document will take time. So by nature, you see, if I'm a private sector, I want to build a house, I just go and pick up the best contractor and say, build. I don't have to invite tenders. But government can't do that. Government has to go through a process. That process is time consuming, which is why money is not spent. And you suddenly say, I have the capacity to spend 10 lakh crore. Even the votaries, even the strong votaries of capital expenditure are bewildered. They say, how can the government suddenly spend 33% more than what was allotted the previous year?
So why do you so critically, or rather, why are you so dismissive or critical of the new tax regime?
Oh, it's a mystery. It started unraveling. It will unravel more. You see, if you want to push people into the new tax regime, say so openly. And the simplest way to do that is to say, all exemptions will come to an end in the year, say, 26-27. You please arrange your affairs. From 26-27 onwards, there'll be no exemptions. All of you will have to pay tax, and this is the rate in 26-27. That is a simple, direct, transparent way of moving towards your secret goal. Instead of that, what you say is, I've got a new tax regime. Now you say, the first 7 lakhs, you don't have to pay any tax. But even under the old tax regime, if you avail of ATC, ATD, standard deduction, and
HRA and everything.
HRA, etc., you don't have to pay tax for 7 lakhs. In fact, I have got the tables of the Hindu, Indian Express, Hindustan Times, Business Standard, and you can look at any other table published by the newspapers. The only difference is at what point the two tax regimes diverge. But practically everybody is agreed that up to 20 lakh rupees a year, the tax liability under the old tax regime and the new tax regime is exactly the same. Now, how many people in this country have an annual income of more than 20 lakh? What is the Honorable Finance Minister saying? I'm helping the middle class. If somebody has an income of more than 20 lakhs a year, is he middle class? He's rich. And once upon a time, Arun Jaitley said about 6-7 years ago, only 35 lakh people in this country admit to an income of, say, 8 or 10 lakhs. That's what he said. But that is about 7-8 years ago. Let's assume that 1 crore people have an income of more than 20 lakhs. But what about the 139 crore? Therefore, up to 20 lakh, there is no difference in the tax liability. In fact, my main criticism against the new tax regime is, while there are no material differences in the tax liability as far as 95% of the people of this country are concerned, you are disincentivizing savings. These are the people who are saving 1,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees. You are now disincentivized savings because the natural human behavior is not to save. The natural human behavior is to spend. But therefore, those who manage the economy must address the natural human behavior and bend it towards savings. What this government is doing and what the new tax regime is doing is sending a message, don't save, spend. Now, if everybody takes that message to heart and spends rather than saves, household savings will collapse. And if household savings collapse, where will you get the capital formation for investment in this country?
If I can just slip in this question, you mentioned of something called as a secret goal. What is the secret goal? What do you think is the secret goal?
Their goal, I think, is to move to a no exemption tax regime. I have no problem. You move to a no exemption tax regime, but lower your tax rates drastically.
Right.
Today, the marginal tax rate for the old tax regime is 42.4, and for the new tax regime is 39. If you have a marginal tax rate of 39%, how do you call it a low tax regime? So they will move to a no exemption, which is okay. Let's start with that. But you promise at the same time, it will be a very low tax regime.
Right. So my last couple of questions to you. We are in the February of 2023 and we've already seen the budget. Gives us a fair sense of the state of the economy today in our country. What do you think, in your wisdom, are the challenges that lie ahead before India this year and beyond?
See, the main challenge is growth. You do the arithmetic. We have 8 years growth rate of the Modi government. The current year, they say we'll have 7%. And the next year, the finance minister says we expect 6.5. Take those numbers. We'll accept those numbers. The average for 10 years is 5.6. The average for 10 years, you do the arithmetic, I have done the math, it's 5.6% for 10 years. In the UPA government, the average for 10 years was 7.5. So we got 2 percentage points in this 10 years lower than the 10 years of the UPA government. 2 percentage points a year makes a huge difference to your pace of growth, to the size of the economy, and above all, to the per capita income. 2% we have lost every year. And over 10 years, you calculate the GDP. I asked the finance minister in the last monsoon session, in the first 10 years, we doubled our GDP in about 11 and a half years. Under the UPA, we doubled the GDP in real terms in 10 years. Now, will you be able to double the GDP in your 10 years? She didn't have an answer. I'll tell you, she will not be able to double the GDP when they complete 10 years. When they complete 10 years, if in real terms the GDP is 200 lakh crore, then that would be doubling the GDP. They will not be anywhere near doubling the GDP. So we lose growth, and they are now chipping away at welfare schemes and social security. So what kind of an India are we, can we expect going forward?
And finally, sir, the IMF has placed India in a bright spot in their new World Economic Report. And again, in your wisdom, do you think we're heading for a brighter future for the Indian economy in the years to come, given that the world economy is expected to slow down this year? How badly are we to expect it to hit India?
See, if you wish to be a one-eyed monarch of the blind, you want to be a one-eyed monarch of the blind, I have no quarrel with you. All your subjects are blind, you have got one eye, and you say, I'm better than everybody else. That's not the way to look at it. The way to look at it is, where are we as a country compared to, say, China, compared to the US? China's GDP is 5.5 times more than ours. US's GDP is perhaps, 15, 20 times more than us. If you grow at, say, 6%, if China grows at 2%, China will add more wealth in a financial year than India will add. If America grows at 0.5%, it will add more wealth than India will add. So there's no point saying we are growing. You're certainly growing, but don't compare yourself with China's growth and America's growth and boast. They are growing from a higher base. From a higher base, they are growing at 3% or 2.5% or whatever. From a tiny base, you're growing at 6%. It doesn't add to the net wealth of the country as much as it's added in China and the United States. That's one. The second is, I thought this government was against ranking. So if you look at this rank and pat yourself that we are the number one in growth, all right, look at the other ranks. Global Hunger Index, where are you? Freedom Index, where are you? Press Freedom Index, where are you? Infant mortality rate, where are you? Anemia, where are you? Wasted children, stunted children, where are you? Therefore, don't take one ranking alone. All right, take this ranking, enjoy 5 minutes and say, I am the fastest growing, but also look at the Global Hunger Index. We are near the bottom of the Global Hunger Index. If you are saying you are growing fast, also admit that there's massive hunger in this country.
So are we going to head to the 5 trillion economy as the...
See, whether there is a government or no government, we will go to 5 trillion. For example, you're traveling from here to Agra, Delhi to Agra. Whether you go by a Mercedes-Benz car or a two-wheeler or a bullock cart, someday you will reach Agra. The question is, when will you reach Agra? They're talking about 5 trillion, 5 trillion. Tell us when. They first said it will be in 23-24. They pushed it back to 24-25. They pushed it back again to 26-27. These are meaningless statements. Someday we will reach 5 trillion. Why do you stop at 5 trillion? I'll tell you. Someday we will reach 10 trillion. Someday we will reach 20 trillion. So what is the magic about reaching 5 trillion? So whether you travel a bullock cart also, you will reach Agra, except that you will take 1 year.
All right, sir. With that, we'll conclude this interview. Thank you very much. Stay tuned to Outlook Business as we get you all the deep insights, everything related to business, money and startups, and of course, the talk of the town, the budget. Stay tuned.